You may recall a little while ago I made a short on just how full my van was, ready for the job that I was about to undertake. Well, now this is the complete opposite. It is completely empty. I've got all my tools out, I've got my makeshift racking out, and the van is completely bare, bar a couple of foot plates to hold some of the Milwaukee Packout system in. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make my life more efficient for the job and make it easier. So I'm using the Milwaukee Packout system, although be it I do not have the Milwaukee tools, I use a different brand. But the other idea behind it is that when I want to use the van for something that's not work, I can take all of the tools out and I've got a completely bare unit in the back, empty space, so I can go down the tip, for example. But that aside, I'm doing it to make my life easier, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I do it. In the great scheme of things, the floor isn't actually in that bad a condition. It's only going around the edges where things have been bashed into it and knocked in over time, although there's a sort of big crater being created there. But what I've had to do is I've had to screw the plates in, which isn't ideal. Ideally, I need to bolt them in. That will create better strength and it means it can hold more weight. I've also had to repair the floor down in this corner here because all the ply around here just came apart, so I've had to re-glue it all back together again in the past. But as you can see, it's very, very flexible, so I could do with doing something a bit better there. I also want to add a shelving unit to the side here, so I can put put some of the Packout system on the side here so that I can have it off the floor. It won't be attached to any of the other Packout stuff, so I don't have to keep unplugging it and clipping it back in again when I need something. But to do that, I need to remove this board on the side here, which is very, very flexible. I need to increase the strength on that so we can take the weight. But before I start ripping out all of this timber and all of the cladding that's in here, what I should do first, and what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to take what I want to hang up, I'm going to mark it all out, I'm going to loosely fit it to make sure it all works first, because what I don't want to do is go to all the trouble of taking all the sides off, cutting out using them for templates, cutting out the new boards, fixing them, only to have to keep taking them on and off and on and off, trying to get everything correct and exactly where I want it. This is the shelving unit that I intend on using inside the van. I can put a couple of units on it. As you can see, it's all brand new. I've only taken it out to have a quick look at it. But the idea behind that is that I want to fix this fairly new design and released box from Milwaukee up there, so I can put all my knickknacks in there. My odds and sods that don't come out on a daily basis, but they don't really have a home in a flight case. It also means that with the second shelf on there, I can put another Packout box, suitcase if you like, underneath it, which I can take in and out as and when I need. Putting these shelving units together couldn't be more simple. You just take the bracket here, make sure the bolt is at the bottom, slide it in, and then you'll see on the side here there's a point for a screw, which obviously the kit comes with, which goes into the side. You do the same obviously on the other side over here, but as you'll see here, there's a release mechanism for when it's in the actual supporting rails. So I'm just going to put this all together now because to make sure I can get all the measurements and the dimensions correct in the side of the van, and it also gives me a rough idea, so because I can test the empty boxes out on top of it to make sure that it's all going to fit as I imagined it. So I fixed the brackets in very loosely. I've only got a couple of screws holding it in place, top and bottom, just to make sure that it does go. You can see the units on here. It's obviously quite loose at the moment. I haven't done the bolts up and the bottom here, and one thing to bear in mind is when you do this, and when I was lucky enough I was able to use a level because my driveway is relatively level. If you don't have a level driveway, you'll probably have to do it all by measurement. Also, one thing you need to bear in mind is that with these brackets, obviously you're going to lose that amount of space. So on the shelf underneath the main box that I put on here, I'm only going to be able to put a couple of these slimline packs in because it's just going to interfere. I did just test it a second ago with this one and it didn't fit. So sliding the ladder over the top, which is the idea, how obviously does give its issues with this system, i.e. that the lid won't, well, it does just about go up, but obviously it's a bit of a hindrance, and obviously trying to close it again, I will have to move the ladders one way or another to get that to come, so I might have to bring the whole thing this way, and also obviously it's going to be blocking those two units at the top, but then I can put the things up there that I don't use very often, i.e. what I've already got up there. I've got crimps on one side and nuts and bolts on the other, a couple of items I don't use on a regular basis. It does mean that it can balance on the back of the crates, but obviously I'm going to have to find a way to hold this up, but that's a problem for later on. I do have an idea here because there are these lugs here which are holding the roof up, but if you look over there where there would be a lug, there is actually a bolt in there which is holding the safety frame. So it could be that I can pull some of these out and find that there's a fixing in there that I can just wind a bolt in so I can build something to support the steps. I could always just revert back to how I used to have it, which was to have the drawer units sideways in the van so that the ladders did actually go all the way down the middle and they'd fit in nicely with the door shut. But obviously, apart from the fact that they're blocking the drawers, which isn't actually an issue in itself, is that once they're in place, obviously the drawer units don't fully open. In fact, they only go about halfway, which means if I've got anything right down the back, it's going to be a pain to get to. The obvious third option is that I put the roof rack back on the van and I carry the steps that way. But there's the added security risk of them getting stolen, and also with the bad weather that we're about to hit with winter coming, I don't really want to have to clean them every time I want to take them into somebody's home. So with all my pack-out system in place in the van, be it loosely, I've decided to kind of go with this setup. I've got plenty of space down there so I can chuck extra things like a vacuum, for example, or boxes full of equipment ready for a big job. I'm also going to, because of the ladders, I'm going to buy extra wall mounting plates to put up on that side, and I might do the same on this side later on as well. It just allows me an extra option for things like these little cases, and obviously for these two which are blocked by the ladders, but they don't get used very often, and the chances are my ladders will be on site when I do need to get these out. But if I don't, it means I can put them on the side, out of the way, don't have to worry about them, and I can grab them easily without having to move lots of stuff out of the way. So what have I got to do now? Well, now it's time for me to take everything back out of it again. I need to mark up all the fixing positions and remove the side panel and the floor and cut them. I'm all marked up now with the main runners for that drawer unit. And what I've also done is I've left a little space down here for a piece of timber so I can attach my cable clips. There's a nice big tube which I can clip on there. And then I've left a bit of space so that you can just about see the outline edge there, so I can affix one of the mounting plates just behind it. So here's one of the cheats that I did for this job. When I went to the wholesaler and I bought the timber, just so happens that they have a big cutting machine, which they were more than happy to stick my sheets of 8x4 on and cut to the dimensions that I wanted. So I've already halfway there with my cut. I mean, obviously it's a little bit short in the corner here, but I'm not worried about that little bit. So what I've got to do now is trace around it, mark it out, mark out all the same fixing points, and I'll get onto those later on with a must do with those. But for now, I'm going to mark it all out, cut it out with a jigsaw and offer it up to make sure it all fits.
Freedom! So fresh, so new. Freedom! It's all for you. All for you. Freedom! Keep your ear to the ground. Talking about the freedom. It's the best show in town. Best show in town. Freedom! Well. Freedom! I give you freedom. Yes, it's right.
And there we have it. Snug as a bug in a rug. So now I know that fits okay. I'm going to sand the edges off, remove all the splinters from it, and I'm going to start prepping for fixing the racking unit.
Come on everybody, young, old, all you lovers, this is our time to rise back from the sand.
Now a really useful tool for doing this job is a hinge tool, which is basically a drill bit, which has a centre piece, which is spring loaded. This way you'll find the centre of every hole every time. So obviously I've just finished drilling those holes. Now it's time for me to move on to the other side and do these ones, and then I'll go around and do all the pilot holes for where the screw fixings are going to go, just to make sure that it all lines up exactly where it's supposed to be. And a quick tip here, if you find that when you're fitting your brackets you don't have a clamp that's long enough to reach across to hold it in place, well, you've got to drill pilot holes anyway, so you can just use a couple of normal screws in the holes that you already made when you tried it out and fitted it in the van to start with, just to hold it in place whilst you do the rest of the pilot holes. And once you've finished drilling all these holes, don't do what I just did, which was to start taking all the clamps off because I'd forgotten about the extra wall plate I'm going to fit. One thing you'll notice is that these pencil lines don't quite line up. See, it's not too bad on this side, but when I get over to the other side, it's quite a long way off. Now that's due to the curvature of the wood when it was in the van. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to drill all the holes as normal, as per how it is on the base here. But when I come to bolt it up, I'm going to have to leave it all loose so that I got a bit of flexibility and a bit of movement in it, because obviously the plastic base for the hanging rail needs to stay straight. The wood can have a bit of give in it, but the plate itself must stay straight and level, otherwise the things I'm going to connect to it just simply won't fit. So removing the cover, we can see I've got all my holes all nicely drilled, all in their rightful places. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to flip the board over. I'm going to use what they call T-nuts. Now essentially they're a nut and a washer built into one, but they grip into the timber itself, so there's no spinning on it. It means you don't have to get behind there with another socket to tighten anything up. So now comes the point where I've got the laborious task of drilling out all the holes ready for the T-nuts. Now I've taken a tester piece here just to give myself an idea of how deep I can go, and I'll just show you on the camera if I can bring it up close, and hopefully it will focus in quite nicely. Might take a little second. Let's just zoom it in there for you. So I don't know if the camera will just about pick up. I've gone that little bit too deep on that one. It's not the end of the world, but I don't really want the top of the metal poking through the other side of the timber. So I've tried to do a few others. This one's pretty good. That one again, far too deep. And this one isn't quite enough. And the reason for doing that is because, well, plywood, as you know, is layered. You've got all the different layers where they compress all the wood together to make the sheets. So to find that level, you can see the change in colour. It's got that kind of pinkiness to it. So I know that that's the depth that I need to go to, so I can just make them all the same without having to worry about going too deep. The other trick as well is, if you've got a very sharp spade bit, is to not use the drill speed on it, because it can just take it through far too quickly. I'll just demonstrate here. You see, if you're not careful, you can't stop the trigger fast enough, and you end up going almost all the way through. But by putting it in speed 1, gives you more control, more accuracy, and you can stop where you want it to stop. So I'm going to start drilling all of these out. Probably going to take me a little while, but by the power of editing, I can speed it all up or edit it out. Something else I should say as well is that because the tip of the spade is so long, you always want to have another piece of timber underneath that's sacrificial, or raise up the sheet that you're drilling through, or you need to have an empty hole beneath, which is what I have here. Otherwise you end up with lots of little holes. Well, as you can see, all the holes are now been taken out with the spade bit. It's not the best spade bit in the world, as you can tell, because there's quite a lot of swarfing going on and a bit of material left behind, but it's all going to be hidden, so I'm not too worried about that. You could also just use a Forstner bit, that would be another way of doing it. The next thing I need to do now is just take my drill out the centre of the holes so that the centre of the T-nut will fit in. So what I'm going to do is just do one hole to start with, just to test it, and then carry on and do the others. Great. So what did I do with my hammer? Oh. You've been having a go at woodwork yourself, have you, mate? Come on. There we have it. There you go, mate. You can have your hammer back now. Cheers, buddy.